welcome to Life on the Edge. This month, I'm speaking to Ewan Anderson from PX3 about the really hot topic of sustainability. Obviously, as we know, there's a real climate crisis going on around the world. So we delve into the topic of sustainability and we look at the ways that we have engaged with PX3, and they've produced a lot of information around the benefits of the sustainability benefits from IGEL. I really hope you enjoy the episode. As you may be aware, Life on the Edge is now available on Spotify, and I'm hoping to have it up on Apple Podcasts soon. So you can either watch it on YouTube or you can enjoy listening to it on Spotify. Really hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Life on the Edge. This month, we're focusing on sustainability, and I'm talking to Ewan Anderson from PX3, who is the CIO there. Hi, Ewan.
Hi, James. Nice to see you.
Good. So, Ewan, just to start off, maybe give yourself, if you can give us a bit of background about yourself and also about PX3.
Sure.
And how yeah, go on.
No, absolutely. I've been around the IT industry for about 30 years. 20 something of those, I ran a reseller who was an IGEL partner. So we provided end user computing solutions into large scale sort of enterprise, public sector and not-for-profit organizations. But just over 4 years ago, I, working with my co-founder, Justin Sutton Parker, we set up PX3. And this was really because we saw a gap in the marketplace for independent science-based information around sustainability and IT. So there was a lot of claims around what IT could do and how it could be greener, but very little of it was substantiated by facts. So what we wanted to do was really come up with a way of providing organizations with the metrics to help them with their decision making about where they are now and what they should be doing in the future. And that's really the foundation of PX3. Science, verifiable data, properly authenticated research to help organizations make more sustainable decisions.
Okay, that's really interesting. Obviously, we've seen sustainability become a focus for a lot of IT organizations. So just to give kind of what would you define as sustainability?
So it's all about making sure that we leave the world in ideally no worse state than we found it, or I would say ideally in a better state than we found it, really starting to work on regeneration. But at the very minimum, it's not to do more harm than is currently being done. So from an IT perspective, that means using devices for longer. It means buying devices that use less resources in their construction and operation, and ensuring that at end of life they're dealt with responsibly in terms of refurbishment, recycling, repurposing, and all the other things that can be done. Anything that keeps them out of landfill. So really at a sort of top level, sustainability is all about reduction. It's all about reducing our use of resources and in particular energy. So IT's kind of got a dual role to play. On the one side, it can be greener itself, but also it can help organizations meet some of their sustainability and net zero goals through things like flexible working, hybrid working, to cut down on commute. So, IT's, as I say, it's got that dual role of both being greener, but enabling green operations as well. Sure,
that makes sense. Because, I was just looking at some facts around, in particular around end user computing, and I saw that it generates 1% of global greenhouse gases through the manufacturing of 460 million devices and energy consumed by 4.2 billion users. Those are staggering numbers.
Yeah, I mean that's Justin's research. So he's been researching this field for over 10 years. And is doing a PhD in IT sustainability at University of Warwick and Warwick Business School. So this is, as you say, it's staggering in terms of the volume of equipment that's being produced, and as you can imagine, at the other end, there's an equal volume which is being disposed of, which is, you know, a huge problem in its own right. So it's about how do we not necessarily stop that manufacture, because, you know, the devices that are being built are more energy efficient than the ones that they're replacing. But what we have to do is ensure that we get the maximum useful life out of what's already been produced. And then at the time of replacing it, look at what's a highly energy efficient alternative to move to at that point.
So if we look at something, you know, obviously we've been through COVID, so you've in some ways you've probably got the double-edged sword, because you had, obviously everyone was locked down, but at the same time you had this massive increase in demand for devices. So did things get better or worse, or did it kind of balance itself out during COVID?
From our perspective, things got better,
right?
Because if you look at the reduction in commuting, and again, from an IT perspective, it's about 2.3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So EUC is 1% of it. The rest of it, in terms of, you know, data centers, etc., it takes it up to about 2.3%. Commuting is about 2.8.
Right.
So that obviously has been a huge saving in people not commuting as much, and particularly in the UK, the majority of commute is being done in petrol engine or petrol and diesel engine vehicles. So, you know, what COVID and lockdown, you know, did for sustainability, if you like, was twofold. One, it reduced the amount of emissions that were being produced by people traveling to work, but it also proved to those organizations who were dubious about the concept that life and work and productivity didn't necessarily end because people started working from home. So now it's really about encouraging that blended approach or hybrid approach to working that says, you know, 2 or 3 days working from a location other than the central office is, you know, perfectly acceptable, and it's good practice. It's good for work-life balance, and it's certainly good for the environment. But you're right, there was a scrabble for devices, and a lot of the normal decision making went out of the window in favor of, you know, what can I actually get? And of course, it was combined with the chip shortage as well, and, you know, everything came together in a perfect storm. What we're now seeing, particularly at enterprise and public sector level, in large-scale organizations, is that when they are making decisions about purchasing and about devices, that energy consumption and sustainability is starting to be one of the key criteria that's being used by IT procurement. So that's really important.
Yeah, I recently did some internal training around looking at financial reports and stuff like that, and you know, from different companies, and you see now front and center sustainability is on, you know, the kind of what each company is looking at for on a yearly basis, you know, is improving the sustainability. And I think in the UK as well, they've brought in some sort of new index where every company has to state what they're doing in terms of sustainability. So yeah, it's definitely becoming more and more prevalent, I think, in IT, and we are obviously we've seen this great transformation since COVID, and now we've got this whole, you know, whole trying to figure out what we're doing at work. We've got, in some cases, we have people who, you know, we've got this whole great resignation where people are just like, I'm not going to just commute to an office every day. And, you know, I've heard examples where people were commuting to offices to sit on a Zoom or a Teams call. It's like, it feels a bit like Inception or something, you know, it's a dream within a dream type thing scenario. But so, yeah, I can see the whole the benefit of hybrid, and obviously, as you said, if we can cut down the commuting, then it has to, and then if you tie it in with the extendability of devices. So just to kind of look a little bit deeper into, I know obviously IGEL and PX3 have been doing quite a bit of work together around sustainability and kind of, you know, getting out of that refresh cycle that companies are seem to be stuck in. And obviously during things like the chip shortage and that, then obviously it highlights, you know, how you can reutilize these devices. And, you know, you've got the environmental benefits, but obviously as a company, they're looking at the bottom line as well. So there's all these cost savings that they can come across. So I just wanted to look at some of the stuff. So I know one of our customers who you guys worked with and did some research around, they made huge savings by making changes to and extending the life of their devices. So could you tell us a little bit about that and what sort of kind of metrics you looked at?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, if you're making a decision around extending the life of the device, you've got to be sure that you're not going to impact on user experience.
Yeah.
But if you can get the user experience to be the same or even better, and you can save on running costs, including electricity, and you can save on the capital costs of replacing those devices with new ones, and potentially save on some of the operating costs of managing those devices, that's where you've got something that's really compelling to an organization. So yeah, we got hold of the analytics for a large financial services customer that has deployed the IGEL OS solution. And we looked at the devices that they were using when they were running Windows, and then we looked at the performance of those devices and the energy consumption of those devices when they were running IGEL OS. So this is a proper benchmarking scientific study on what the power consumption difference was between those two scenarios. Now, what we found, we looked at a number of different devices and how that would play out. So we found a range really between sort of about 20% up to 49% energy saving from those devices without appreciable loss of functionality or user experience. So particularly at the upper end of that, around the 49-50% energy reduction, that's very significant across an organization with several thousand devices in terms of an energy saving, a cost saving, and of course, in terms of the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions as well.
No, very much so. And obviously, as you said, you've got the energy saving, and obviously, energy costs are spiraling out of control at the moment. And, we've seen huge increases across the board for domestic and commercial kind of prices in terms of electricity. So anything that you can do around that is obviously going to be beneficial to a company.
Yeah, but I mean, again, the other side of it obviously is, they didn't need to buy the new devices in order to achieve sort of, Windows 11 compatibility. So they could keep using those devices. That meant that in this case, about 3,500 devices did not need to be manufactured. So the resources that would have gone into those, the energy that would have gone into manufacturing them, for the packaging, for the distribution of those from the point at which they were constructed and assembled, all the way through to their deployment within the organization, all of that energy was saved in that for at least another couple of years and possibly longer. So again, that's really important. That effectively it comes into supply chain emissions. So that's not necessarily one of the things that all companies have to report on at the moment, but it's becoming more common to report on that, and it's becoming organizations are becoming much more aware of those what's called scope 3 emissions, and that was important to this organization that they looked at that supply chain emissions and managed to reduce those as well.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, as you said, this is becoming more and more important for organizations, and not just organizations. People are actually choosing companies based on their sustainability goals, and we're seeing it more and more. And I think this whole hybrid work, but employees are looking at that, they're looking at sustainability, all these different factors are coming into it, and companies are having to adapt to that. And we are definitely seeing sustainability is becoming one of the key things when they're choosing different solutions.
Absolutely, and I think whether you're a public sector or a private sector or not-for-profit organization, sustainability is right up there in the strategy. The commitment to net zero, declaring a climate emergency, these are important strategic things that organizations are doing, and IT is generally not the first thing that they're thinking of as to how they achieve that. But in actual fact, there's an opportunity for IT to step up, to be part of the solution, but also to be a smaller part of the problem. So even from, as I say, from a financial services point of view, ESG, are institutional investors looking at this going to rate you highly? Are employees going to find you attractive? This is very much about attracting and retaining talent, and about attracting and retaining investment. and sustainability is going to be a key strength for an organization. And IT is part of that profile that they need to look at and present.
Yeah, I was looking into it in a bit more detail, and as we talked about the figures around how much end user computing, and then it was a comparison that IT contributed as much emissions as like the aircraft industry, and it was like that was staggering, because obviously you would think, oh yeah, okay, planes, huge amounts of emissions, but I suppose if you think of the wider the IT, it's not just the data centers, the manufacturing, the devices, it's the whole process around it. And hadn't really thought about it. And obviously, like, some of the materials are really bad and toxic and that kind of thing as well. So it's interesting to kind of see that shift in mindset. And it's in quite short space of time. Like, just to anecdotally, I studied environmental science in college, and sustainability in companies wasn't even talked about that back then. I graduated in 2000, so but just in the last couple of years, you've definitely seen that shift, and companies, and the shift in the importance as well. And I think that's where, as ourselves working together, have demonstrated we have a really good message around that, about how you can make your solution more sustainable. And you can do it in conjunction with our partners who are hosting in greener data centers and that kind of thing. So you've got a full end-to-end solution in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And the data center piece is important, because we still come across a lot of organizations with what they call them data centers, but the efficiency of what they're running and how they're running it, and particularly how they're cooling it, is a huge issue. And as we start to see more of that move into the hyperscale data centers that are using sustainable energy, that's got significant benefits in its own right. And obviously, it's something you have to look at from a cost and an operational and a security perspective. But ultimately, these are well-proven solutions now. So if you're operating at huge scale and you're highly efficient, then running those things on premises is clearly something that you may wish to do for quite some time. But if you're running a number of servers in some racks in a room with a chiller and a tube stuck out the window, you're probably extremely inefficient and producing an awful lot more emissions than running something like that in a hyperscale data center. And I think, again, some of the research that Justin has looked at on this says that running those workloads can be 7 times more efficient in a hyperscale data center than running it.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge difference. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because you would sometimes, in as you said about those hyperscalers, like, I live in Ireland. Every hyperscaler in the world has a data center here, and we're having a real discussion about it at the moment, because obviously they're consuming huge amounts of energy, and it's like, just they all are talking about how they want to use sustainable and renewable energy sources. Well, we're not quite there yet, but
no, and it's important to differentiate between those who are simply buying carbon credits and those who are truly investing in solar and in particular wind energy. So what you're seeing again is those very large scale organizations are starting to look more about how they can directly connect to sustainable energy sources. And indeed, we work with one company in the Nordics who've put their data center right next to the hydroelectric plant, and they run 100% sustainable energy. So, there are things that can be done, and there are ways of bringing that footprint right down. But what we have to look at is what is substantially better than where we are today. We don't have to look at perfect in every instance, because if we do, we don't get anywhere. So, this is where it's important, is to look at where we can see a 20, 30, 40% reduction in emissions by doing something that potentially is also financially attractive to the organization. So, we're not asking for people to ramp up their costs or to dramatically change the way they work or to impact on their user experience. These are all things that can save you money, can make users happier, and can cut energy and emissions. So, yeah, in our words, green IT can be great IT. It doesn't have to be painful to do this. It actually can be good.
That's a great slogan. I really like that. Green IT can be great IT. That's I really really like that, and I think you're right. And I think there's a certain amount of education, and that's certainly something that we at IGEL do. Is we show obviously from this we have all of the information that we've got from yourselves at PX3, but as you said, we also do TCO calculations around how the cost savings of implementing. So we've done quite a bit of work around how if you're on-prem but you move to cloud, but then if you repurpose devices, you can offset the cost of the move to cloud by repurposing your devices essentially. So we do quite a lot of work. So yeah, as you said, there's multiple benefits to being more sustainable. It's not just about green and helping the environment, which obviously is the most important thing, but there is, as we know, there is other benefits, and as you said, it's becoming more and more of a factor in everything around IT, and we're seeing it more and more. Where would you like to see IT in, let's say 5 years in terms of sustainability?
I think it's understanding the full picture, and that's where organizations are principally engaging us at the moment, is to understand where they are today. Yeah. And then they're typically planning for a net zero strategy that takes them to 2030 potentially. And we think obviously that IT's got a key role to play in that. So where I'd like to see them in 5 years is having IT properly embedded into that strategy, to have a net zero commitment that's well ahead of 2050, and be looking actively about how IT can support the ways of working to make that possible, but also looking all the way through the supply chain at all of those embodied emissions and use phase energy to find out how IT can minimize the impact that it's having. So yeah, better informed, moving in the right direction, and closing in on more aggressive timescales, because we need that more aggressive approach in order to reverse the trend that we have at the moment.
No, that's really good. It sounds like you're quite optimistic about that we can make a difference within IT.
I think I'm with you in that. For a long, I can't remember if it's Douglas Adams or not. For a long time, nothing happened. We've seen complete inactivity. I remember doing sessions with IGEL and various others on climate change, probably 10, 15 years ago, talking about it, and about how thin clients at the time used the same amount of electricity as a Christmas tree light bulb or something, and how this was really important. And people were listening, but nobody was really taking it seriously or doing anything about it. And for me, this sort of whole energy consumption and waste becomes a bit like the cultural attitude to smoking in public. We all used to get on aeroplanes. If you're old enough, you actually got on an aeroplane and somebody next to you had a cigarette and was putting at the end of it in an ashtray. We would not consider doing that now. Even those of us who still smoke wouldn't consider doing that to the person next to us. We have to get to the point where consumption of excess electricity and the disposal of items that could be repurposed, refurbished, recycled, and extended is as socially unacceptable as blowing smoke in somebody's face. And I think we can get there. I think that genuinely there is now a movement and an understanding and a grasp of the importance of this that is starting to put it in that direction.
Yeah, no, I really like that analogy. Obviously, here in Ireland, we were the first country to ban smoking, and at the time, people thought, "Are you not crazy?" Obviously, pub culture is huge in Ireland, but we did it. I thought our government were crazy at the time, but it is completely now, it is not acceptable to smoke anywhere indoors. And, as you said, it's all about that mindset and a change of mindset across the board. And as you said, we're starting and it is becoming more of a focus. But as you said, that's where we need to get to, is where it is completely unacceptable to not be sustainable and utilize things till their end date, and get as much out of the resources we have and not be constantly consuming.
And one of the biggest problems that we have is this: I need a shiny new thing, and I want the latest thing. And as a species, we're kind of hardwired to go hunting and gathering for those things and accumulating them and hoarding them. And what we have to accept is we are now at a point in our evolution as a species where we have to challenge that, and we have to say no. If we are going to leave this planet in a fit state for the next X generations, that's a set of habits that we have to break. And using something for longer becomes a virtue.
Sure. No, I agree. And I've been guilty of the past of like a lot of people of the next shiny thing. But now I definitely do think about it. And I've looked at, I've looked at things like, I've had my mobile phone for about 3 years. Do I need a new phone? Is there anything that I'm missing functionality? And I kind of went, no, I'm good.
Well, some of it's down to the vendors, though, in that those devices need to be easier to maintain, repair, upgrade. And
I have seen a few of those vendors starting to crop up. And it is interesting to see that we have this whole we have more and more IT geared towards being sustainable from the outset, from the manufacturing the device, as you said, to being able to repair that device. Because obviously I know, like, back when I was younger, we got our TV repaired, you got your washing machine repaired, all those things used to happen. And there is this movement I have seen of I can't remember. It was a clothing firm that basically you can send the jackets back over a lifetime and they will repair it for you and that kind of thing. So we are seeing it. It's not just IT; it's across society that we need this change to kind of embrace sustainberry.
But wouldn't it be nice if IT was leading the charge?
Absolutely, yes. It's
the worst example everybody can think of.
As I said, studying environmental science, it would be great to have the two in one. So it really is. And it makes me proud that IGEL has that key message around sustainability, and our leadership are very much it's very much in our strategy as a company. So it's not just, as we talked about, it's not buying carbon credit. It's, you can make a real difference by utilizing solutions such as ourselves, because we do have a real message around sustainability.
And all credit to you that you've engaged an independent organization like ourselves to actually look at that for you and give you the figures, because there's no telling where the figures are going to end up, and so we're going to do that research and come back to you with the figures. And okay, they're strong figures. But it's great that you make the investment in that external validation of what you believe to be the case, and that gives you the confidence to take that to the market and say, actually, we know that we are reducing the amount of energy. We know we can prolong the life of the device, and this is what it's worth in environmental terms. So from our side, it's a great partnership where organizations are willing to make that investment and get real data to validate what they're saying.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's watching or listening to this, if you go to igel.com/sustainability, you can, get an overview, or you can download the entire full report and see all of the data which we, ourselves and PX3 have put together. So, Ewan, that has been really useful. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that everyone listening will benefit from that and see the benefits of more sustainable IT. And as you said, it would be amazing if IT could be the driving force in sustainability. I'd really like to thank you for your time, and hopefully everyone finds this really beneficial. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, James. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Register for Disrupt on Tour at www.disrupteuc.com. Look forward to seeing you there.